The emergency beacon pierced through the void of space like a dying star's last scream. Deep within the monitoring station on Kepler 442b, Senior Communications Officer Zarachin nearly dropped her coffee as the Priority 1 distress signal flooded her screens with urgent red warnings. "Holy shit," she whispered, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface as she attempted to decode the transmission. The signal was unlike anything in the Terran Federation's extensive database. Alien in origin, carrying harmonics that made her teeth ache and frequencies that seemed to bypass her ears entirely, resonating directly in her bones. The message, when finally translated by the station's quantum linguistics AI, was simple and terrifying. "Help us. They are coming. We cannot fight them anymore. Please, anyone who receives this, we are dying." Within minutes, the distress call had been relayed to Terra Prime, the seat of human civilization that sprawled across what was once called Earth. The planet had changed dramatically since humanity first reached for the stars. Where green forests once stood, massive industrial complexes now pumped out starships at an unprecedented rate. The oceans, once blue and pristine, now housed underwater cities that served as recruitment centers for the ever-expanding Terran military. Admiral Marcus Stone stood before the massive holographic display in the War Council chamber, his weathered face illuminated by the ghostly blue light of star charts and tactical readouts. Around him, the greatest military minds of humanity gathered, men and women forged in the crucible of countless battles against hostile alien species, pirates, and the unforgiving vacuum of space itself. The signal originated from the Vega system, reported Intelligence Director Sarah Kumar, her augmented eyes glowing faintly as she accessed real-time data streams. Long-range sensors indicate massive energy signatures consistent with orbital bombardment. Whatever's happening there, it's not pretty. General Rodriguez, commander of the Terran Marine Corps, leaned forward in his chair. His left arm had been replaced with a military-grade cybernetic prosthetic after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, and the servos whirred softly as he gestured toward the display. "Sir, our protocols are clear. First contact situations require diplomatic vessels, not battle fleets. We should send the UNS Harmony with a full diplomatic team." Admiral Stone's laugh was cold and bitter. "Diplomatic team? General, look at these readings again." He waved his hand, and the display zoomed in on the Vega system. Multiple red icons flashed ominously around the star. Those energy signatures aren't celebrations. Someone is getting massacred out there, and they're begging for help. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had encountered 17 different alien species since achieving faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Of those 17 first contacts, only 3 had been peaceful. The others had required military intervention to prevent humanity's extinction. The Zeltari tried to sterilize our colonies with bioweapons. Admiral Stone continued, his voice growing harder with each word. The Cristoni attempted to enslave our entire species. The Vordhak Empire considered us a delicacy and hunted human settlements for sport. Each time, we survived because we met their violence with overwhelming force. Captain Elena Vasquez, commander of the dreadnought UNS Retribution, spoke up from her position near the tactical display. Her ship was the crown jewel of the Terran Navy, a massive vessel bristling with weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand the fury of dying stars. "Admiral, what if this is a trap? What if these aliens are luring us into an ambush? Then, we'll give them the same lesson we've given every other species that threatened humanity," Stone replied without hesitation. "We'll show them why the galaxy calls us Deathworlders." The term Deathworlder had emerged from humanity's first interactions with galactic civilization. Most intelligent species in the galaxy evolved on relatively peaceful worlds, planets with stable climates, predictable weather patterns, and ecosystems that rarely posed existential threats. Earth, by contrast, was a hell world that had tried to kill humanity at every turn. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, predators, diseases, natural disasters. Humans had survived them all and emerged stronger. Where other species developed technology for comfort and convenience, humans developed it for survival and war. Where other aliens sought harmony with their environment, humans conquered it. Where others feared the darkness between stars, humans embraced it and made it their domain. Mobilize the Third Battle Fleet, Admiral Stone ordered, his decision final. Full combat deployment. I want the Retribution, Vengeance, and Apocalypse as the primary assault vessels, supported by 12 heavy cruisers and 30 destroyers. Deploy Marine battalions on each major ship and prep the orbital strike platforms. Sir, Director Kumar interjected, that's enough firepower to sterilize an entire star system. If this is a genuine distress call from peaceful aliens, then they'll have the protection of the most dangerous military force in the galaxy, Stone finished. And if it's a trap, whoever said it will learn why you don't mess with humanity. As the orders went out across the Terran communication networks, massive shipyards throughout human space erupted into frenzied activity. The Third Battle Fleet was humanity's premier assault force, ships designed not for exploration or trade, but for the complete annihilation of threats to human existence. The UNS Retribution alone carried enough firepower to reduce a moon to asteroid dust. Its sister ships, Vengeance and Apocalypse, were equally formidable. Together, they represented the pinnacle of human military engineering, weapons platforms that had been tested in the fires of interstellar war and proven effective against every threat the galaxy had thrown at humanity. But as the great ships prepared for faster-than-light transit, none of their crews could have imagined what awaited them in the Vega system. The aliens who had sent the distress call were the Kythera, a peaceful species of crystalline beings who had never known war. Their homeworld of Kythera was a paradise of singing crystals and living light, where conflict was resolved through harmonic meditation and violence was not just unknown, it was incomprehensible. The Kythera had thrived for millennia in their peaceful corner of the galaxy, sharing knowledge and beauty with other civilized species. They had developed wondrous technologies based on harmonic resonance and crystalline matrices, creating art that could move viewers to tears and music that could heal both body and soul. They had no weapons. They had no armies. They had no concept of warfare beyond ancient legends that spoke of mythical warrior species that existed somewhere in the dark reaches of space. When the Devourer swarm arrived at their system 6 months ago, the Kythera initially believed it was another species seeking peaceful contact. The swarm's bioships were unlike anything they had ever seen. Massive, organic vessels that pulsed with alien life and bristled with natural weapons that could dissolve matter at the molecular level. The Devourers had not come seeking trade or knowledge. They had come to feed. The first Kythera colony world fell within hours. The bioships descended like a plague, their weapons reducing crystal cities to component molecules while their harvester organisms consumed everything. Buildings, technology, people. The Kythera's desperate attempts at communication were met with mechanical efficiency as their world was strip-mined of all useful matter. By the time the survivors realized the true nature of their attackers, 3 more colonies had fallen. The Devourer swarm was unlike any species the galaxy had encountered before, a mechanical plague that consumed entire civilizations to fuel its endless expansion. They felt no emotion, responded to no diplomacy, and showed no mercy. The Kythera had one advantage. Their faster-than-light communication technology could send messages across vast distances instantly. As their homeworld came under siege, they broadcast their desperate plea into the void, hoping against hope that someone, somewhere, might help them. They had no idea they were about to summon humanity's war machine. 3 days after the distress signal was received, the Third Battle Fleet completed its jump to the Vega system. What they found there would be seared into the memory of every human who witnessed it. The once beautiful Kythera hung like a broken jewel against the backdrop of space. The planet's crystalline cities, which had once reflected light in spectacular displays of color and beauty, were dark and crumbling. Massive scars marked where Devourer bioships had carved through the planet's crust, stripping away everything of value. But the planet was not dead yet. Pockets of resistance still flickered across its surface, and several badly damaged Kythera vessels limped through space, their crystalline hulls reflecting the harsh light of Vega's star. And surrounding them, like wolves circling wounded prey, were the Devourers. Admiral Stone studied the tactical display with the eye of a man who had fought 17 different alien species and survived them all. The Devourer bioships were massive, some over 10 kilometers in length, and they moved with an organic fluidity that spoke of evolved rather than engineered technology. Analysis, Commander, he asked his tactical officer. Preliminary scans show approximately 47 major bioships and over 300 smaller vessels, Commander Park reported. Their hulls appear to be some form of adaptive organic armor. Energy weapons seem to have limited effect, but kinetic impactors are showing promising results. And the aliens were here to help. 17 surviving vessels, all heavily damaged. The planet shows massive ecological disruption, but there are still population centers intact. Best estimate puts Kythera survivors at approximately 2 million individuals. Stone nodded grimly. 2 million survivors from what intelligence suggested had once been a population in the billions. The Devourers were efficient killers. All ships. This is Admiral Stone, he announced over the fleet communication channel. We have hostile forces engaged in the genocide of an indigenous species. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Show these bastards why humanity doesn't negotiate with monsters. The Third Battle Fleet moved into attack formation with the precision that came from decades of warfare. Unlike the flowing, organic movements of the Devourer bioships, human vessels moved with mechanical precision, straight lines, perfect formations, calculated angles of attack that maximized firepower while minimizing exposure. The Devourers detected the approaching human fleet and responded with the same mechanical efficiency they had shown the Kythera. Bioships began turning away from the dying planet, their weapons charging with bioluminescent displays that pulsed along their organic hulls. But the Devourers had never encountered humanity before. They had consumed 17 different species in their expansion across this region of space, and each encounter had followed the same pattern. Initial confusion, attempts at communication, desperate defense, and, finally, submission as their victims realized the futility of resistance. They expected the humans to follow the same pattern. Instead, the UNS Retribution opened fire at maximum range with its primary mass drivers, weapons that hurled chunks of dense matter at significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic projectiles crossed the void in seconds, their impacts against the lead Devourer bioship creating spectacular explosions as organic armor was shredded by pure physics. The war for Kythera had begun, and, for the first time in their expansion across the galaxy, the Devourers were about to learn what it meant to face a species that considered war an art form. The first Devourer bioship died in a spectacular cascade of organic fluids and bioluminescent death throes. The creature, for it was as much living being as warship, writhed in space as its massive hull ruptured, spilling genetic material and partially digested matter from dozens of consumed worlds into the void. Admiral Stone watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction as the Retribution's mass drivers continued their deadly work. Each projectile was a telephone pole-sized chunk of depleted uranium moving at 12% of light speed. When they struck the bioships, the kinetic energy release was equivalent to nuclear weapons. Target destroyed, reported Tactical Officer Park. The bioship is breaking apart. Debris field expanding. But the Devourers were learning quickly. The remaining bioships began evasive maneuvers, their organic hulls rippling and flowing like liquid muscle as they adapted to the human attack patterns. Acidic weapons discharge began arcing across space toward the human fleet, streams of corrosive material that could dissolve starship armor in minutes. Incoming fire, announced Defense Coordinator Williams. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Deploy countermeasures. The human fleet moved with practiced efficiency, but several of the acid streams found their marks. The heavy cruiser UNS Indomitable took a direct hit to her port side, her ablative armor hissing and bubbling as the alien acid ate through 3 decks before the damage control teams could neutralize it with emergency foam. Indomitable reports 17 casualties and minor structural damage, reported communications. She's still combat effective. Captain Elena Vasquez's voice crackled over the communication channel from her position commanding the Retribution. Admiral, These things learn fast. They're already adapting to our kinetic weapons. Recommend we switch to nuclear-tipped missiles. Stone nodded. All ships, authorize nuclear weapons release. Time to show these biological nightmares what human engineering can accomplish. The change in human tactics was immediate and devastating. Missile tubes across the fleet opened like hungry mouths, disgorging hundreds of fusion-tipped projectiles that streaked across space like miniature suns. The missiles were designed specifically for ship-to-ship combat. Each one carried a 50-megaton fusion warhead and advanced targeting systems that could adjust their flight path to counter enemy evasion attempts. The Devourer bioships tried to adapt, but nuclear fire was not something that could be evolved around quickly. The first wave of missiles detonated in brilliant flashes of artificial starlight, their fusion flames washing over the organic hulls and boiling away layers of adaptive armor. 3 more bioships died in the nuclear hellfire, their death screams transmitted through subsonic vibrations that rattled the hulls of human vessels. But for every bioship that fell, the Devourers were learning. Their remaining vessels began clustering together, using their fallen comrades' debris as shields while they adapted new defensive measures. "Sir," reported Science Officer Martinez from her station, "I'm detecting massive genetic activity within the bioships. They appear to be rapidly evolving countermeasures. Some of the newer specimens are showing resistance to our nuclear weapons." Admiral Stone's expression hardened. He had fought adaptive enemies before, but nothing quite like this. The Devourers weren't just using technology. They were evolving in real time, their organic ships literally rewriting their genetic code to counter human weapons. Time to escalate, he decided. All ships, prepare for close engagement. Marina units, prep for boarding actions. The order sent a ripple of anticipation through the human fleet. Boarding actions were humanity's specialty, close-quarters combat in the vacuum of space where their death-world reflexes and centuries of battlefield experience gave them overwhelming advantages. The UNS Apocalypse, a massive dreadnought designed specifically for close-range combat, moved toward the largest cluster of Devourer bioships. Her hull bristled with plasma cannons, particle beams, and electromagnetic pulse weapons that could disable organic nervous systems. As she closed to point-blank range, the Apocalypse unleashed hell. Plasma streams superheated the vacuum between ships, turning space into a cauldron of ionized gases. Particle beams tore through bioship hulls like burning spears, cauterizing the organic matter as they passed. EMP weapons sent cascades of disruptive energy that scrambled the neural networks controlling the alien vessels. But the Devourers fought back with desperate ferocity. Bioships launched clouds of organic missiles, living projectiles that moved with predatory intelligence, adapting their flight paths to avoid point defense fire. Streams of digestive acid crossed space like liquid lightning, and several bioships actually attempted to physically grapple with human vessels, extending massive organic tendrils to crush their mechanical opponents. The battle devolved into a vicious melee that stretched across thousands of cubic kilometers of space. Human ships moved with mathematical precision, their crews trained to fight as extensions of their vessels' weapon systems. The Devourers fought like living nightmares, their bioships writhing and flowing like sea monsters in the dark. On the surface of Kythera, the surviving Kythera watched the battle with a mixture of terror and hope. They had never witnessed anything like this before. 2 species locked in mortal combat with weapons that could shatter moons and burn away atmospheres. High Resonator Silithes, one of the few surviving Kythera leaders, stood in the ruins of the capital city's primary Harmony Tower. Her crystalline form caught and reflected the light of nuclear explosions in space, creating prismatic displays that would have been beautiful under other circumstances. "What have we summoned?" she whispered in her people's harmonic language, her words creating musical chords that resonated through the damaged crystal structures around her. "These humans fight like the demons from the ancient warnings." Through their quantum communication arrays, the Kythera had monitored humanity's response to their distress call. They had expected a peaceful species to arrive with medical supplies and offers of sanctuary. Instead, they had summoned what appeared to be the galaxy's most dangerous predators. But As she watched human ships sacrifice themselves to draw devourer fire away from Kythera refugee vessels, Silithess began to understand. These humans weren't demons, they were guardians. Violent, terrifying guardians who fought with the fury of a species that had earned its place in the galaxy through constant struggle. In space above, the tide of battle was beginning to turn. The human fleet's superior tactics and adaptable technology were overcoming the Devourer's biological advantages. But the cost was mounting. 3 destroyers had been lost to acid attacks, and the heavy cruiser UNS Stalwart was drifting powerless after a bioship had somehow infected her computer systems with organic viruses. Admiral Stone made a calculated decision. All ships, deploy the planet crackers. Target the largest bioship concentrations. The planet crackers were humanity's ultimate conventional weapons, massive kinetic impactors designed to break up asteroids and small moons. They were weapons of last resort, capable of causing tectonic disruption if used against inhabited worlds. But in space, against the largest Devourer bioships, they were exactly what the situation required. The UNS Vengeance opened her forward launch bay, revealing a weapon that dwarfed even the massive dreadnought that carried it. The planet cracker was essentially a guided asteroid, a chunk of dense matter the size of a city block, equipped with fusion drives and targeting systems. As it launched toward the largest Devourer bioship, the alien vessel tried desperately to evade. But the planet cracker was too massive to outmaneuver easily, and when it struck, the impact was visible from the planet's surface. The bioship, nearly 15 kilometers long, folded in on itself like a crumpled piece of paper. The kinetic energy release created a brief artificial star as matter was compressed beyond its structural limits. When the light faded, there was nothing left but expanding debris and the rapidly cooling remnants of what had once been a living warship. The destruction of their largest vessel seemed to break something in the Devourer force. The remaining bioships began withdrawing from the planet, moving toward the edge of the system with the organic equivalent of panic. They had consumed 17 species before encountering humanity, but they had never faced anything like this. The humans weren't just fighting to defend territory or resources. They were fighting with the primal fury of a species that had climbed to the top of evolution's ladder by refusing to submit to any predator. Every human ship in the fleet carried the genetic memory of ice ages survived, plagues overcome, and predators defeated. As the Devourer retreat began, Admiral Stone allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. But he knew this was far from over. The bioships were regrouping at the system's edge, and their rapid adaptation capabilities meant they would return stronger and better prepared. Signal the marine transports, he ordered. Prepare landing forces for surface operations. We need to secure the Kythera population centers and establish defensive positions. The liberation of Kythera was just beginning, and humanity was about to demonstrate why they had become the galaxy's premier warriors. The Kythera had asked for help, and they were about to receive the full protection of Earth's children, whether they were prepared for it or not. On the planet below, High Resonator Silithess watched the approaching human dropships with a mixture of gratitude and terror. Her people were about to meet their saviors face to face, and she prayed they would prove to be more than the demons their warfare suggested. The human dropships descended through Kythera's atmosphere like falling stars, their heat shields glowing cherry red from atmospheric friction. Each vessel carried a full platoon of Terran Marines, 48 of humanity's finest warriors equipped with the most advanced personal combat systems in the galaxy. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos checked her weapon systems one final time as her dropship shuddered through its landing approach. Around her, 36 Marines performed similar rituals, their power armor's status displays casting blue light across determined faces. The armor itself was a marvel of human engineering, 2 tons of ceramic composites, reactive armor plating, and integrated weapon systems that turned each Marine into a walking tank. 2 minutes to touchdown, announced the pilot. LZ looks clear, but sensors are picking up massive structural damage throughout the target area. Watch your step down there. Santos nodded grimly. The orbital reconnaissance had shown the devastation clearly enough. What had once been the Kythera capital city was now a maze of broken crystal spires and melted harmony towers. The Devourers had been thorough in their destruction, leaving only enough infrastructure intact to facilitate the harvesting of the planet's population. Through her armor's visual enhancement systems, Santos could see the surviving Kythera emerging from their hiding places as the dropships touched down. They were unlike any alien species humanity had encountered before, tall, graceful beings composed of what appeared to be living crystal. They moved with fluid motions that seemed almost like dancing, and even in their current state of desperation, they possessed an ethereal beauty that was breathtaking. But beauty wouldn't stop the Devourers from returning. Alpha Company, this is Colonel Williams, crackled the voice of the battalion commander over the tactical communication network. Establish perimeter around the primary population center. Bravo and Charlie companies will secure the secondary sites. We have reports that Devourer ground forces are still active in sectors 7 through 12. Santos led her platoon out of the dropship and into the alien city. The gravity was lighter than Earth standard, about 0.8 g, which gave the Marines a slight advantage in mobility. But the environment was unlike anything they had trained for. The very ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with crystalline energy, and the air carried harmonics that their armor's sensors couldn't quite categorize. Jesus, muttered Corporal Jackson as he surveyed the destruction around them. What the hell did this to these people? Santos was wondering the same thing. The damage patterns were unlike anything in their tactical databases. Buildings hadn't been blown apart by explosives or burned by energy weapons. Instead, they appeared to have been dissolved, eaten away at the molecular level, leaving behind strange organic residues that their scanners identified as partially digested matter. Contact front, called out Private Chin from her position at point. Multiple figures approaching. They don't match any known Devourer bioforms. Santos moved up to observe the approaching figures and felt her breath catch. 3 Kythera were walking toward their position, their crystalline bodies catching and refracting light in spectacular displays of color. The lead figure was slightly taller than the others, and when she spoke, her voice created musical harmonies that somehow translated directly into understandable speech. Greetings, warriors from the void, the lead Kythera said, her words accompanied by chiming tones that seemed to resonate in Santos's bones. I am High Resonator Silithes, speaker for the remnant of the Eternal Harmony. We thank you for answering our call for aid. Santos removed her helmet, revealing a scarred face marked by years of combat experience. She had fought the Zeltari bioweapon outbreaks on Tau Ceti, survived the Cristoni slave raids on New Geneva, and led the evacuation of New Oslo when the Vorthak hunting fleets arrived. But she had never stood before an alien who radiated such obvious intelligence and peaceful intent. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, Terran Marine Corps, she replied formally. We're here to help, ma'am. But we need to get your people to safety. Our intelligence indicates the Devourers will return with reinforcements. High Resonator Silithes tilted her head in a gesture that somehow conveyed both gratitude and confusion. Devourers? Is that what you call the consumers? We did not know they had a name. They do not speak as we understand communication. They're a biological plague species, Santos explained, her voice hardening with professional assessment. They consume entire civilizations to fuel their expansion. We've encountered them twice before, and both times required orbital bombardment to stop their advance. The implications of her words seemed to ripple through the gathered Kythera like a physical force. Several of them began producing harmonic frequencies that Santos's translator identified as expressions of profound distress. You have fought them before? Silithes asked, her crystalline form brightening with what might have been hope. And you survived? How is this possible? Santos grinned, the expression transforming her scarred features. Lady, my species has been fighting for survival since we climbed down from the trees. The Devourers are just another predator that needs killing. Before Silithes could respond, the ground beneath their feet began to vibrate with a rhythmic pulsing. Santos's combat instincts, honed by decades of warfare, immediately identified the sensation. Incoming, she shouted, raising her weapon. Multiple heavy contacts, approaching from underground. All Marines, combat positions. The Kythera scattered in panic as the Marines moved with practiced efficiency into defensive formations. Whatever was coming toward them was large, moving fast, and apparently unconcerned with subtlety. The first Devourer ground unit burst through the crystalline street in an explosion of organic matter and acidic secretions. It was a nightmare creature, part insect, part machine, part plant. Standing nearly 4 meters tall, it possessed multiple articulated limbs ending in weapons that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. Its carapace was armored with the same adaptive material as the bioships, and its sensory organs tracked the Marines with predatory intelligence. Target acquired, Santos called out, her rifle already trained on the creature's center mass. Fire! The Marines opened up with their standard-issue plasma rifles, sending streams of superheated matter toward the Devourer. The creature's adaptive armor absorbed the first few hits, its surface rippling as it attempted to evolve resistance to the human weapons. But the Marines had been fighting adaptive enemies for 50 years. Before the creature could fully adjust to plasma fire, they switched to kinetic rounds, high-velocity projectiles that punched through organic armor through sheer kinetic force. The Devourer staggered under the impacts, its alien blood spraying across the crystalline ground. More creatures emerged from the underground tunnels, each one slightly different from the last, as the Devourer hive mind attempted to find optimal configurations for fighting humans. Some were heavily armored but slow, others were fast but fragile, and a few possessed ranged weapons that fired streams of digestive acid. The battle quickly devolved into a running firefight through the ruins of the Kythera capital. The Marines moved with tactical precision, using the broken crystal structures as cover while they systematically eliminated the Devourer forces. Their power armor allowed them to leap between buildings with ease, and their integrated weapon systems gave them devastating firepower. But it was their adaptability that truly distinguished human warriors. Where the Devourers relied on biological evolution to counter threats, the Marines simply changed tactics. When acid weapons proved effective against their armor, they switched to long-range engagement. When the creatures adapted to kinetic rounds, the Marines deployed explosive ammunition. When the Devourers began coordinating their attacks, the humans responded with electronic warfare that disrupted their communication systems. High Resonator Silithes watched the battle from a reinforced bunker, her crystalline form trembling with emotions she had never experienced before. Her people were pacifists by nature. Violence was so foreign to their culture that they literally had no words for the concepts of warfare, tactics, or military strategy. But, watching the humans fight, she began to understand why the galaxy feared them. The Marines didn't just fight with superior technology or overwhelming force. They fought with a primal understanding of violence that spoke to millions of years of evolutionary pressure. Every movement was calculated for maximum lethality. Every decision designed to end the conflict as quickly and decisively as possible. When Corporal Jackson's position was overrun by 3 Devourers, he didn't retreat or call for help. Instead, he activated his armor's self-destruct sequence and charged directly into the cluster of enemies. The resulting explosion eliminated all 3 creatures and cleared the way for his squad to advance. When Private Chun discovered a Devourer trying to burrow beneath their defensive position, she didn't hesitate to leap into the tunnel after it, engaging the creature in hand-to-hand combat in a space too confined for ranged weapons. When Staff Sergeant Santos realized the creatures were using the Kythera civilians as shields, she didn't hesitate to risk her own life by charging through the middle of the enemy formation to reach the endangered aliens. The battle lasted 3 hours and ended when the last Devourer ground unit was eliminated by sustained plasma fire from orbit. The UNS Retribution had moved into low orbit and was providing close air support with surgical precision strikes that eliminated enemies without harming nearby Kythera. As the dust settled and the Marines conducted their post-battle assessment, Silithes approached Santos with obvious trepidation. The human warrior was covered in alien blood and acid burns, her armor scarred and smoking, but she was grinning with the satisfaction of victory. "Your people," Silithes began carefully. "They fight like forces of nature. We have never witnessed anything like this." Santos shrugged as she checked her weapon systems. "Ma'am, My species survived ice ages, plague outbreaks, asteroid impacts, and predators that made these devourers look like house pets. We didn't get to the stars by being peaceful. But you came to help us, Silithes pointed out. You risked your lives for a species you had never encountered before. Santos paused in her equipment check and looked directly at the alien leader. The Devourers are a threat to all intelligent life. We've seen what they do to peaceful species, and we've made it our business to stop them. That's what the strong do for the weak. We protect them. The simple statement carried implications that would reshape the Kithiurus understanding of the galaxy. They had believed that intelligence and civilization naturally led to peace and harmony. But these humans had achieved the same level of technological advancement while retaining the predatory instincts that had carried them through millions of years of evolutionary warfare. And now those instincts were focused on protecting the Kithira from extinction. There will be more, Santos continued, her expression growing serious. The Devourers don't give up easily. They'll adapt to our tactics and return with larger forces. We need to evacuate your people or turn this planet into a fortress. Silithes considered the options, her crystalline mind processing possibilities that would have been unthinkable just days before. Her people had never faced a choice between abandoning their homeworld or preparing for war. But as she watched human engineers already beginning to establish defensive positions and communication networks, she realized the choice had already been made. The humans hadn't come to rescue the Kithira. They had come to stand and fight. And for the first time in her species' peaceful history, Silithes felt a savage satisfaction at the prospect of making the Devourers pay for what they had done to her people. 3 weeks had passed since the initial battle for Kythera, and the planet had been transformed into something the Kithira barely recognized. Where once crystalline spires had reached toward the sky in harmonic perfection, now human defensive structures bristled with weapons and sensor arrays. The very ground pulsed with the energy signatures of buried mines, automated turrets, and underground bunker systems. High Resonator Silithes stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed command center, watching human engineers install what they called planetary defense cannons, massive weapons capable of engaging targets in orbital space. The transformation was both fascinating and terrifying to witness. The structural modifications are proceeding ahead of schedule, reported Commander Torres, the human engineering officer assigned to work with Kithira technical specialists. His augmented reality display showed a holographic representation of the planet's new defensive grid. We've integrated your crystalline resonance technology with our shield generators. The result is unlike anything we've deployed before. The integration had been the suggestion of Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the fleet's xenobiologist, who had spent the past weeks studying Kithira technology with obvious fascination. The crystalline beings had developed science based on harmonic resonance and energy manipulation that was completely alien to human understanding, but somehow compatible with their own electromagnetic systems. Show me the defensive capabilities, Silithes requested, her musical voice carrying undertones of determination that would have been impossible for her species just months ago. Torres activated the tactical display, and the hologram shifted to show the planet surrounded by overlapping fields of energy. The crystalline resonance amplifies our standard deflector shields by a factor of 12. Incoming projectiles are not just deflected, they're actually disintegrated at the molecular level by harmonic interference. And the offensive systems? That's where things get interesting, Torres grinned. Your people's ability to focus and direct energy through crystal matrices has allowed us to create weapons that are, well, frankly, they're beyond anything we've ever built before. The display zoomed in on one of the massive planetary cannons. Where a human weapon would have used magnetic fields or chemical explosives to propel projectiles, this hybrid system used crystalline focusing arrays to create coherent beams of pure destruction. The power requirements were enormous, but the Kithira homeworld's natural crystal formations could channel and amplify energy in ways that defied human understanding. A single shot from these cannons can punch through the hull of a dreadnought from a range of 50,000 kilometers, Torres explained. And thanks to your harmonic targeting systems, they're accurate to within centimeters at that distance. Silithes nodded. but her attention was drawn to movement at the edge of the system. Human long-range sensors had detected the return of Devourer forces, just as Staff Sergeant Santos had predicted. But this time, they weren't returning with the same biological ships that had been defeated 3 weeks earlier. Admiral Stone to all defense positions, crackled the communication system. Long-range reconnaissance confirms massive Devourer fleet approaching. Estimated arrival in 18 hours. All personnel to battle stations. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the planet's surface, human defensive positions came online with mechanical precision. Orbital platforms moved into attack formation, their weapons charging with energy that made space itself ripple with distortion effects. The integrated human Kythera defenses hummed to life, creating a defensive grid unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. But the approaching Devourer fleet was unlike anything they had faced before as well. The bioships had evolved. Instead of the organic vessels that had been defeated in the first battle, the new Devourer force consisted of creatures that barely resembled their predecessors. They were larger, more heavily armored, and equipped with weapons that pulsed with energies that human sensors couldn't properly categorize. "My God," whispered Dr. Tanaka as she studied the long-range scans. "They've completely redesigned themselves. Look at these energy signatures. They're using some kind of dimensional manipulation technology." Admiral Stone studied the tactical displays with the grim focus of a man who had spent his life preparing for exactly this kind of challenge. The Devourers had clearly learned from their previous defeat and adapted accordingly. Where their original bioships had relied on conventional weapons and organic armor, these new vessels appeared to be equipped with technology that bordered on the incomprehensible. "Analysis, Commander?" he asked his science officer. "Sir, these new bioships appear to be partially existing in folded space," reported Commander Martinez. "Our conventional weapons may have limited effectiveness against targets that can phase in and out of our dimensional framework. Then, we'll adapt our tactics accordingly," Stone replied without hesitation. "Signal the Kythera Command Center. I want to speak with their technical specialists immediately." The communication system connected him directly to the Planetary Defense Center, where Silithes and her technical team had been monitoring the approaching threat with growing concern. "High Resonator." Admiral Stone's voice carried the weight of command authority that had been forged in dozens of interstellar conflicts. "We need your people's expertise. These Devourers are using dimensional manipulation that's beyond our current technology. Can your crystalline systems affect targets in folded space?" Silithes conferred quickly with her technical specialists, their harmonic communication creating complex musical patterns that resolved into rapid decision-making. The Kythera had never been a military species, but they possessed scientific knowledge that was entirely different from human understanding. "Admiral," she replied, "our harmonic resonance technology operates across multiple dimensional frequencies. We believe we can modify your weapons to track and engage targets regardless of their dimensional phase state. How long do you need?" 6 hours for basic modifications, 12 for full integration." "You have 4 hours," Stone replied grimly. "The Devourers will be in weapons range in 6, and I want every advantage we can get." What followed was the most intense technological collaboration in the history of both species. Human engineers worked alongside Kythera resonance specialists, combining electromagnetic technology with crystalline harmonic systems in ways that should have been impossible. The language barriers were overcome through direct neural interface technology that allowed thoughts and concepts to be shared directly between human and Kythera minds. Dr. Tanaka found herself working directly with a Kythera scientist whose crystalline form pulsed with energy patterns that her instruments could barely measure. The alien's name translated roughly as Harmonic Engineer Bright Song of Stars, and his understanding of dimensional physics was unlike anything in human scientific databases. "Your species thinks in terms of force and resistance," Brightsong explained, his harmonic speech creating complex mathematical equations that appeared as visual patterns in Dr. Tanaka's augmented reality display. But reality is not solid. It is music, and music can be changed by introducing new harmonies. The concept was difficult for human minds to grasp, but the practical applications were immediately obvious. Instead of trying to force their way through the Devourer's dimensional defenses, they would harmonically tune their weapons to resonate with the same frequencies that the bioships were using to phase in and out of normal space. As the modifications were completed, the first wave of Devourer bioships entered the system. They were massive, some over 20 kilometers in length, and they moved with an organic fluidity that seemed to ignore the normal laws of physics. As they approached the planet, they began to phase in and out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. All weapons, target the lead bioship, ordered Admiral Stone. Fire when ready. The response was immediate and devastating. The hybrid human Kythera weapons didn't just hit their targets. They followed them through dimensional phase shifts, creating cascading destruction that tore through folded space like sharks through water. The lead bioship, caught in the middle of a dimensional phase transition, was literally torn apart by harmonic forces that attacked its molecular structure across multiple dimensional planes. But the Devourers had learned more than just dimensional manipulation. The surviving bioships began deploying weapons that human scanners identified as reality anchors, devices that forced local space to conform to a single-dimensional state, preventing the defenders from using their harmonic weapons effectively. "They're adapting faster than we anticipated," reported Commander Martinez. "The bioships are deploying countermeasures to our harmonic weapons." Admiral Stone nodded grimly. The Devourer's ability to evolve and adapt was their greatest strength, but it was also potentially their weakness. "All ships, prepare for close engagement. We're going to have to do this the hard way." What followed was the largest space battle in recorded galactic history. Over 200 human vessels engaged nearly 300 evolved Devourer bioships in a conflict that stretched across the entire Vega system. The bioships fought with weapons that could twist space-time itself, while the human fleet responded with the concentrated fury of a species that had never learned to surrender. The battle raged for 14 hours. Ships on both sides died in spectacular displays of destruction that could be seen from the planet's surface. The human dreadnought UNS Vengeance was consumed by a bioship that somehow turned its own weapons against it, while the Devourer command vessel was destroyed when Captain Vasquez rammed it with the crippled remains of the Retribution. But it was on the planet's surface that the most crucial battle was being fought. Devourer ground forces, unlike anything seen in the previous engagement, began materializing directly inside the defensive perimeter. These creatures could phase through solid matter, making traditional fortifications useless. Staff Sergeant Santos found herself leading a desperate defense of the primary population center as reality itself seemed to become unreliable. Devourer creatures appeared and disappeared like nightmares, their weapons tearing through space in ways that violated every law of physics she understood. "All squads, fall back to secondary positions," she ordered over the tactical network. "These things are phasing through our defensive barriers." But the retreat was interrupted by an unexpected development. The Kythera, who had remained non-combatants throughout the conflict, began emerging from their shelters. Led by High Resonator Silithes, they moved into the combat zone with crystalline forms that pulsed with harmonic energies. "What are they doing?" Santos demanded. "They'll be massacred." But instead of becoming victims, the Kythera began to sing. It wasn't music in any conventional sense. It was mathematics given voice, physics expressed as harmony, the fundamental frequencies of reality itself shaped and directed by crystalline minds that understood the universe as a vast musical composition. The effect on the phasing Devourer creatures was immediate and devastating. As the harmonic song washed over the battlefield, the aliens found themselves locked into a single-dimensional state, unable to phase through matter or escape the focused fire of human weapons. "Target lock acquired on all hostiles," Santos reported, her voice tight with amazement. The Kythera somehow stabilized local space-time. "All Devourers are solid targets." The tide of battle turned in minutes. Deprived of their dimensional advantages, the Devourer ground forces proved vulnerable to sustained plasma fire and kinetic weapons. The orbital battle followed the same pattern as human ships, now able to target bioships that could no longer phase out of normal space, systematically eliminated the alien fleet. By the time the last Devourer bioship was destroyed, Both species had been fundamentally changed by their partnership. The humans had gained access to scientific principles that would revolutionize their understanding of reality, while the Kythera had discovered that their peaceful nature didn't prevent them from being effective warriors when properly motivated. High Resonator Silithes stood beside Admiral Stone on the command deck of the newly arrived UNS Eternal, watching the debris fields that marked the end of the Devourer threat to their system. Around them, human and Kythera technicians worked side by side, already planning improvements to their hybrid technologies. "Your species saved mine," she said simply, her harmonic voice carrying emotions that had no translation in human language. "Your species saved mine right back," Stone replied. "Without your harmonic technology, we would have lost this battle." But both leaders knew the implications extended far beyond a single victory. The Devourers had been a threat to the entire galaxy, and their defeat would send ripples across known space. More importantly, the partnership between humans and Kythera had created something entirely new, a fusion of military might and scientific understanding that would reshape the balance of power among the stars. The question now was what they would do with that power, and how the galaxy would respond to the emergence of an alliance between the most dangerous warriors and the most advanced scientists known to exist. 6 months after the Battle of Kythera, the galaxy had begun to take notice of the human-Kythera alliance. What had started as a desperate rescue mission had evolved into something that was reshaping the balance of power among the stars. Ambassador Elena Vasquez, formerly captain of the destroyed UNS Retribution, stood before the Galactic Council Assembly on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. Around her, representatives of 47 different species watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. The humans had been invited to address the council for the first time in their species' history, an honor that came with significant implications. "Honored delegates," Vasquez began, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had commanded starships in combat. "I stand before you today not as a conqueror or a threat, but as the representative of an alliance that believes the galaxy can be better than it has been." The reaction was immediate. Delegate Zeph High of the Altarian Confederation, a species known for their diplomatic neutrality, leaned forward in his biomechanical support chair. "Ambassador Vasquez, your species' reputation precedes you. The galaxy knows humans as warriors, not as diplomats. Why should we believe this alliance represents anything other than militaristic expansion?" It was a fair question, and one that Vasquez had been expecting. The human reputation for violence was well established throughout the galaxy, earned through 50 years of conflicts with hostile alien species. But the partnership with the Kythera had demonstrated something new, humanity's capacity for protection rather than conquest. "Because," Vasquez replied, activating a holographic display that showed the Vegas system, "in 6 months, we have accomplished something unprecedented. The Devourer swarm, which had consumed 17 different civilizations in this sector alone, has been completely eliminated. Not driven off, not contained, eliminated." The hologram shifted to show detailed scans of former Devourer territory, where once massive bioship fleets had roamed, bringing death and consumption to everything they encountered. Now there was only empty space and the wreckage of defeated biological weapons. Delegate Morthak of the Hegemony, a militant species that had been humanity's primary rival for regional dominance, rose from his seat. His species were natural predators, evolved from pack hunters on a world of eternal twilight, and they respected strength above all else. "The destruction of the Devourers is impressive," Morthak acknowledged, his translated voice carrying undertones of grudging respect. "But it demonstrates exactly what we fear about your alliance. If humans and Kythera can destroy the swarm so completely, what prevents them from turning that power against other species?" Before Vasquez could respond, a new voice joined the discussion. High Resonator Silithes materialized on the chamber floor through the Council's quantum projection system, her crystalline form casting prismatic light across the assembled delegates. "Honored representatives," she began, her harmonic speech creating musical patterns that resonated through the chamber. "I speak for a species that knew only peace for 3 millennia. We had no concept of warfare, no understanding of violence, no experience with the kind of aggression that the humans possess. Yet when we called for help, they came. The Kythera's presence added a different dimension to the discussion. Her species was known throughout the galaxy for their scientific achievements and peaceful nature. If the crystalline beings had willingly allied with humanity's warriors, it suggested possibilities that many delegates found difficult to dismiss. They did not come to conquer or control, Silithes continued. They came to defend. And, when the battle was won, they did not demand tribute or territory. They asked only for partnership in building something better. The holographic display shifted again, showing the transformed KYTH era. The planet was no longer the peaceful crystal garden it had once been, but neither was it a military fortress. Instead, it had become something unprecedented, a world where human defensive technology was integrated with Kythera harmonic science to create systems that could protect entire star systems from threats like the Devourers. The KYTH era defense grid is operational and fully functional, Vasquez explained. It can detect and eliminate threats at ranges exceeding 5 light-years from the protected system. But it is not controlled by either humans or Kythera exclusively. It requires both species working together to operate. This was the crucial point, and Vasquez could see its impact rippling through the assembled delegates. The humans hadn't simply imposed their will on the Kythera. They had created a true partnership where neither species could dominate the other. Delegate Quillera of the Pacifist Coalition, a species of energy beings who had never known physical conflict, spoke for the first time. This defense grid, it could protect other worlds? Other species? That's exactly what we're proposing, Vasquez confirmed. The Human Kythera Alliance is offering to extend protection to any species that requests it. No territorial demands, no political control, no tribute required. Simply protection against existential threats like the Devourers. The chamber erupted in discussion as the implications became clear. For millennia, smaller species had been forced to accept protection from larger, more militaristic civilizations at the cost of their independence. The human proposal suggested something entirely different, protection without domination. But Delegate Morthak was not convinced. And what happens when you decide a species needs protection from itself? What happens when your definition of existential threat includes governments or ideologies you disapprove of? It was the question that cut to the heart of galactic fears about human expansion. Every species in the Council remembered the fate of the Zeltari, who had attempted to deploy bioweapons against human colonies and found their entire homeworld quarantined behind an energy barrier that had lasted 30 years. Vasquez nodded grimly. Delegate Morthak raises a valid concern. My species has a history of responding to threats with overwhelming force. But the Kythera Alliance has changed us, just as we have changed them. She gestured to Silithes, who stepped forward to address the chamber directly. The humans taught us that sometimes violence is necessary to protect the innocent, the High Resonator said. But we have taught them that violence must be guided by wisdom and compassion. Our partnership requires unanimous consent for any military action. Neither species can act alone. The checks and balances built into the alliance were unprecedented in galactic politics. Human military might was constrained by Kythera ethical oversight, while Kythera's scientific advancement was protected by human defensive capabilities. It was a partnership that amplified the strengths of both species while mitigating their potential weaknesses. Over the next several hours, the delegates peppered the alliance representatives with questions about everything from territorial boundaries to trade agreements to technological sharing. But the most significant moment came when Delegate Ythera of the Collective Worlds asked a simple question. What do you require from species who accept your protection? Vasquez and Silithes exchanged glances, a form of communication that had become natural between their species despite their vastly different biology. Nothing, Vasquez replied, except that they not threaten other innocent species. The galaxy has enough predators. What it needs are more gardeners. The metaphor was simple but profound. Instead of viewing the galaxy as a hunting ground where the strong preyed upon the weak, the Alliance envisioned it as a garden where different species could flourish under protection from existential threats. The vote was closer than many had expected, but The Galactic Council ultimately approved the formation of the Protective Alliance by a margin of 28 to 19. 17 species immediately requested inclusion in the protection network, while others chose to wait and observe the results. As the council session ended and delegates began departing for their home systems, Vasquez and Silithes found themselves standing together on the observation deck of the Nexus Prime orbital station. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see human and Kythera vessels working together to deploy the first elements of an expanded defense grid. "Do you think it will work?" Silithes asked, her harmonic voice carrying undertones of uncertainty that had become familiar to her human friends. "It has to," Vasquez replied. "The alternative is a galaxy where species like yours are consumed by predators like the Devourers, while species like mine become the very threats we're trying to protect against." But, even as they spoke, both leaders knew that their greatest challenges lay ahead. Not all species in the galaxy supported the alliance, and some actively opposed it. The hegemony had begun forming its own coalition of militaristic species, while several ancient civilizations viewed any change to the galactic status quo as a threat to their established power. 3 weeks later, the first test of the alliance came from an unexpected source. The Ethereal Dominion, a species of energy beings who had remained neutral in galactic affairs for over 1,000 years, sent an urgent message to the Alliance headquarters on KYTHRA. "Unknown vessels are systematically destroying our research stations," the message read. "They appear to be mechanical in nature, showing no organic components. We request immediate assistance under the terms of the Protective Alliance." Admiral Stone, now commanding the expanded human Kythera fleet, studied the long-range sensor data with growing concern. The attacking vessels were unlike anything in their databases, purely mechanical constructs that moved with mathematical precision and displayed technology that bordered on the incomprehensible. "Analysis, Dr. Tanaka?" he asked the fleet's chief science officer. "Sir, these appear to be automated weapons platforms of unknown origin," she replied. "Their technology is at least 1,000 years more advanced than anything we've encountered. They're systematically dismantling ethereal research facilities and taking detailed scans of everything they destroy." "Recommendations?" Dr. Tanaka hesitated before answering. "Sir, based on the technological disparity, engaging these forces could result in catastrophic losses for our fleet. But if we don't respond, the Ethereal Dominion could be completely eliminated within 72 hours. Admiral Stone nodded grimly. The Alliance had made a commitment to protect innocent species, regardless of the cost. But this would be their first test against an enemy that might actually be superior to human Kythera technology. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Full deployment to ethereal space. And send a message to High Resonator Silithes. We're going to need every advantage her people can provide." As the combined human Kythera fleet prepared for faster-than-light transit, none of them could have imagined that they were about to encounter the advanced scouts of an ancient machine civilization that had been dormant for millennia, a civilization that viewed organic life as a contamination to be cleansed from the galaxy. The Protective Alliance was about to face its greatest test, against an enemy that would make the Devourers look like a minor inconvenience. But they would face it together, two species united by shared values and complementary strengths, ready to defend the principle that the galaxy belonged to all its inhabitants, not just the strongest predators. The war for the soul of the galaxy was about to begin, and humanity's warriors would stand alongside their crystalline allies against the darkness between stars.